Greetings and welcome to Success Formula Show. I am Hamad Yusuf, host of Success Formula Show. Today we have very amazing personality with us. He is CEO and co-founder of Eunimart. And under Eunimart, he is doing so many things and you will be surprised. Give me a warm welcome to today's guest, Shayak. Welcome, Shayak.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for showing up on this show. Let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who were you surrounded with that inspired you to do what you do today?
I started my career back in 2003 in the Indian Navy. I come from very humble background. My parents were teachers in government high schools in West Bengal in India, and that meant that we are in the lower middle class of society. Not exactly poor, not exactly middle class. So that's lower middle class. But there was one advantage to being the son of two teachers because my mom was English literature. And so we had a lot of books of literature in our home, both English and Bengali. And my dad was chemistry, so we had a lot of books: chemistry, physics, sciences, mathematics, plus a lot of other books, right? So I used to read, I used to consume books like crazy when I was a child. You could mostly find me sitting tucked away in one corner of the house reading. So that gave me a great thirst for knowledge. It helped me to add my own world. Post finishing school, I joined the Navy, right? And joining the Navy in India is a big thing because it's a gazetted rank, which means that you're a class one officer and which gets you a lifelong pension. It's a very respected thing. Getting into the Navy is tough. You go through a lot of things and a lot of tests. Qualified, became an officer. I became a nuclear biological chemical warfare specialist, a helicopter operator, as well as the youngest officer in the history of the Navy to make it to staff rank. So by the time I was 24 years of age, I was already leading 200-man teams, $100 million projects. All that gave me a lot of experience leading big teams, big projects. Then I left the Navy in 2012 and I tried my hand at business. So I started a very small business in Goa. It was running hotels and restaurants it was by the beach. And that was a fun experience, but also a very tough experience because I didn't have a lot of money. Picked up a small amount of capitalized loan from my dad and I took the property and then I literally cut grass, painted, did everything myself. Used to be there from morning 7 till 12 in the night. I used to have one staff. I used to carry people's luggage myself, check them in myself, get the rooms cleaned myself, everything end to end, single-handedly. And that business grew from nowhere, like it wasn't even listed. And I did everything from building the websites to putting them on online travel agents. And so we grew a reputation for ethnic Indian experience. And we became very popular with the foreign tourists. Footfall increased a lot, and our revenues grew to 2, 3 times in 1 year. And so in just about 3.5 months, I broke even. So there was a lot of money that we were making, but it wasn't something that I wanted to continue doing. So about a year and a half later, I decided I wanted to do something. So I went and gave my GMAT. Once I qualified for several colleges, but the best one I'd qualified for was INSEAD, which is a good business school. So I went there, did my MBA, and post my MBA, I joined the Rocket Internet Group. Again, there was a lot of difficulty I faced because I went and I'm a non-traditional candidate. I'd never been to college. Instead of college, I'd been to the Navy. I'd never worked in a traditional workforce. I'd actually only run businesses on the streets. My experience was drastically different from what most people have. And so most companies wouldn't hire someone like me. And I had 150 rejections in a row. And then finally, I was about to give up. And I was like, even after the MBA, I'll be going back to Goa and doing the same hotel business, which I did not want to do. But then somebody called me up, and I was basically walking and talking, and we had a lovely conversation. And turned out that guy was heading a multi-billion-dollar company. And he was a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. He really liked my responses. From someone he'd heard that he was this guy who was non-traditional. He wanted to interview me. He didn't tell me who he was. He interviewed me. Then he ended up hiring me, and I ended up joining the Rocket Internet Group. And I joined as the global head for cross-border commerce. So there was 21 countries that were reporting to me, including LATAM, Africa, South Asia, and China. So in 1 year, I turned around the entire thing, set up the processes because this didn't exist. So I established this, grew the group revenues by about 30%. So that was about $1 billion in GMV that I added in 1 year. So all that happened. I learned a lot about setting up international businesses in China and LATAM and Africa, learned a lot about growing those businesses, helping thousands of brands to succeed. And then there came a time when I realized that I wanted to do something for myself again. And I was here in this business and I was seeing so many brands struggle. Like less than 2% of the brands that we would help at Rocket were actually growing. So this was a big problem for me because I was like, we are working in a very inefficient system. The system is not going to help majority, 98% of the businesses to create any difference for them. So I was like, we should do something slightly better, something that at least will help 20-25% of the businesses. Everybody won't succeed on e-commerce. It's a cutthroat game. So I ended up working on it for quite some time, and and today we've launched the world's first, as I was explaining to you slightly before we started this call, we created the world's first open source platform for commerce. So if you think about Amazon, it's closed. You can come on Amazon as a buyer or a seller, but you can't take Amazon's code and build something for yourself. Similarly, Amazon's not a platform. It's a platform in the sense that buyers and sellers can come and do, but it's not a platform for developers, which means like Android is a platform for developers. Anybody can come and build apps on top of Amazon on Android. Similarly, we are a platform where developers, businesses can come, use the ready solutions we provide, club them together, use them plug and play, or create their own solutions on top of it. As of today, Eunimart offers roughly about 300 different APIs for people to build different things, 35 different artificial intelligence solutions for people to use, combine, and get predictive things from generating images, generating content, generating catalog. You cannot even imagine the kind of AI we are working on, to the point where we can literally predict when a business will die or how much revenues will they make and all that sort of stuff, right? So all cool things. Plus, we built 80 different applications in everything from commerce to retail to logistics to supply chain to marketing, everything on top of our application, on top of our platform. And today we've open sourced it and we're giving it to the government of India, in UAE, for different people to build and create complete ecosystems. So imagine, as a government or as a large body, you want to enable millions of people, millions of businesses to grow. And how can you do that? Through our platform. You can take our platform, launch it, and then get anybody to come and use it, or plug and play, or build whatever you want to build.
Oh, amazing idea, Shaggy. And your life story is really amazing and inspiring for our audience, for me as well. Wonderful. And the idea which you have right now is like fantastic. Okay. Shag, you have a lot of experience in different kind of fields in business, in forces, and always you were like in discovery of self-awareness as well. What are the top three success secrets which others can get as a cheat sheet and implement right now in their business?
I've heard a lot of these sessions by senior people who talk about so many different things that they do, which is good. And things like discipline, hard work, smart work, perseverance, these are true across the board. These are things, look, you cannot necessarily create a blueprint of things to do which will guarantee success, but you can create a blueprint of things which you do, you will not succeed. You can definitely do that, which basically means that if you give up in the middle of something, there's a very high likelihood that you're never going to succeed, because the whole idea is not necessarily perfect in the first go, but you perfect it as you go, which basically means you have to be open to making mistakes. Majority of the people that I come across are so worried about failure, are so worried about making mistakes, that they're like, I'd rather wait, watch, make sure everything is perfect before I launch something or do something. Let me tell you this, almost 100% sure, you're never going to reach a point where everything's perfect, right? Which basically means at any point in time, you just have to evaluate what you have and how you can implement that. That's one. Two, I think people who think that some ideas are too big will not manage to ever do big things, because nothing is too big provided you take that particular problem statement, cut it into its small constituent pieces, take each piece, solve for it, and then club it together, and then you have the solution, right? So if you think about Unimart, we are creating a complete open source ecosystem for commerce globally, right? Which includes this completely disintermediating three different fields, right? Reimagining how this will work. So the whole thing about retail and e-commerce combined, omni-channel, the whole thing about supply chain and logistics combined, the whole thing about marketing and finance combined. Think about this, right? Anybody can take any one part of this and one part of that and one part of that and build a whole business. And I'm trying to take the whole thing and put a platform around it. No? So the thing I consciously believe is that if you look at it as a whole, the solution exists. But if you start looking at it piece by piece, you can solve for it. I think this is where many people get scared and they think, oh, that's too big. No, it's not. You can think about going to the Mars. somebody thought about it, right? And somebody's trying to solve for it. And once you've thought about it, it's not necessary you'll succeed. Like I said, you should be open to failure, but you have to plan for it. How are you going to get there? And then the first rocket will fail, the second rocket will fail, but the 10th rocket will land. And that's how you get there. And I think the third thing that I see most people not thinking about very deeply is you're trying to come up with a business idea, or when you're trying to make a business succeed, it's about understanding both people and problems. Some people understand the problem, some people understand people, but very few can combine the two things together and see holistically. And that's where the problem is, because we live in a world where the problems have to be solved with the people. You cannot solve them one by one. So for example, if I were to say, I'm going to create an amazing data science solution that is going to do the cataloging by itself, but I did not understand that how do people actually use it, and they're never going to come on a system and do it, and I need to do it on WhatsApp, that's not going to work. I can guarantee you that's not going to work. So we ended up understanding that, and so we created the whole solutioning through WhatsApp, any chatbot for that matter, but WhatsApp is one of the interfaces we use. Now, very small businesses can take, don't even need to upload an image. They just need to write, I am selling rice. I will understand they're selling rice. I will understand the variations. I'll ask them, is it basmati rice? They'll say, yes, sure. And then I will create the image. I will create the content. I'll create the variations. I'll create the pricing. I'll create the category. I will do the whole cataloging, and I'll say, hey, here's your catalog. Now tell me, which channels do you want to sell on? Is it Amazon? Is it Flipkart? Is it something else? And he says, ABC. I automatically create the versions and push it on those channels. Now, if I didn't understand that the small business can't do that, and that's where the problem is, I would create a very cool data science solution, which would solve the problem, not really for the people. So these are the three things I think people don't do. And I would rather than saying there are things I do, because there's so many things which successful people do, being on time, being perseverant, extremely never giving up. Dude, I've gone through 2 close bankruptcies, and in this business alone, forget anything else. And I've gone through sheer personal nightmare while doing this, because you can imagine I did not want to raise a ton of money, and convincing the world that a platform like this needs to exist, not going to happen. Not many people out there is going to tell you, you're going to combine 80 businesses together, 80 businesses together. I'm not going to fund you. You're mad. Go to Elon Musk. I'm not going to fund you. You're stupid. No. So I didn't want to raise too much money. I wanted to do something which would essentially help people. So there's so many things which I've solved through the ages, through the years, which I can talk about, but I don't think they're indicators of success necessarily. I think the things you don't do are definitely indicators of not succeeding.
Yeah, exactly. And these are really amazing points. Thank you for sharing your success secrets. And the first one was never give up. And when you start doing something and you give up, you feel like version one is better than version none. You have to do something to see whether it is working or not, and keep going, keep moving. Wonderful. Thank you. And what are your future plans to grow your business?
So now I'm thinking of expanding to the Middle East. I've already started a business in the US. India is launching a complete new e-commerce protocol. The government is doing it, which will completely revolutionize the world of commerce. Trust me on this. Like in the next 5 years, you'll hear everything about it. So I think what I'm focused on now is taking advantage of these major domain shifts that are happening in the world of commerce, like in India, Middle East, and US, and rooting myself in these and making sure that Unimart is the platform that will help millions and millions of businesses, not just in India, but UAE, Saudi Arabia, US, Canada, etc., to go global, to help them to sell everywhere and make things easier for them. So that's what I'm doing right now.
And what challenges are you facing right now in your business?
Look, finance is always a challenge. You always don't have enough money to build different things. But I think you shouldn't ask for too much money. At the end of the day, then you're not optimal. But I think the real challenge right now is we've got an unbelievably big dream of completely reimagining commerce and changing everything in the world. Question is, can we implement it? That's a challenge, right? How can I go to the government of India, give them my platform and say, take it to every small shop in every corner, in every village and every town? Can we do that? We are just about to do that. We are this close to doing that, where the government has come to us and said, hey, we want to use your platform. Now we're evaluating how. Same thing in Middle East. Can we go and take this to all the businesses that are trading? That's really the question. This is basically the big challenge that I'm facing, and I'm enjoying this challenge because this is something which you can solve for now.
And how much time it will take to solve these challenges?
I think these are perennial problems, but and large businesses tend to look at things in a 5-year, 10-year span. Small businesses tend to look at things in a quarter to quarter span. Very small businesses in a week to week span. I would say we do a bit of both, where we look at our delivery timelines on a week to week basis, but we look at a strategy on a 5-year basis, like where do we need to be. So I think from a strategy perspective, India, UAE, Middle East, US, I think in the next 5 years, we should be able to implement the entire thing where almost entire ecosystem will be backed on our platform.
And how much fund is needed?
I honestly don't want to raise too much funding. No, I don't want to raise too much funding because if you're launching something, like if you think about it, Google went to IPO after Series B, Facebook went to IPO after Series B, Amazon went to IPO, only raised 2 rounds of funding. So if you look at some of the biggest, and the Apple did not raise a lot of funding. So if you look at some of the most successful companies on earth, they've not raised a lot of private funding because you can either build a product. So when you look at business, there are two axes. So you have profitable and you have scalable. Now, the point is, most businesses tend to think of scalable. So they're building for scale, but they haven't thought of profitability. So you have to continually raise money to keep going to the next iteration of the product. Whereas homegrown businesses, like they're called lifestyle businesses, they only tend to think of profitability. They will not think of scalability, which means that you will make money, but you will not be able to grow that business. Now, if you can think of something that is profitable and scalable, then you can take that business and you can really grow it. Now, the point about a platform like Unimart is it's both profitable and scalable, right? So you can extrapolate this bigger and bigger without needing a lot of funds because the business will be profitable and scalable at the same time. So the profits will drive.
What is the single most failure in your professional life? What lesson have you learned and how did you recover from it?
God, I fail on a weekly basis at so many things. I think the one that I really have failed at raising a lot of funds because I probably didn't want to. But I think there's one thing that I can say which I failed at is two things. I'll tell you two different stories. One is in 2018, I almost ran out of money, and for 2 months, I could not pay my employee salaries. So I told them that when I'm able to raise the funds, I will pay everybody back. This is end of 2017. And Jan 2018, I raised the money and I paid everybody back with interest. So I think that is definitely a low point. And I learned a lot about human character, who sticks and who doesn't, and why. And the second thing I think is the technology. It took me several iterations to come to the technology platform where we have, and each of the earlier technology versions worked in a way that they worked to do the things that they were supposed to do. But the things they were supposed to do was not right in the first place, which means that we hadn't thought about the users, or we hadn't thought about the use cases, or we hadn't thought about the unit economics properly. So when we ended up implementing it, I did not want to continue doing it because I realized that if I do that, it's not going to be profitable and scalable at the same time. It's either going to be profitable or going to be scalable, and that's not what I wanted to do. So I ended up taking about 5 years to build this technology. So I started in 2019, 19, 20, 21, 22, 4 years now. And finally, we managed to come to this. Most people will not have the perseverance or the patience to wait for 4 years before you see something that you've dreamt of in 2017 happen. So it's taken a hell of a lot of time.
Yeah, okay. Okay, Shag, who's your mentor and what is the impact?
I don't have a mentor in any particular way that way. I've got mentors who have taught me different things. I've got somebody like Kaushik who's taught me sales a lot. I've got Professor Shalansky who's taught me strategy. I've got people here and there who've taught me technology. But I don't have a particular mentor per se. So it's been accumulative or creative learning. So where I've continually kept picking up things as we failed at things, or as we launched new things, or as we tried new verticals, or as we tried doing new departments. I used to head each one of them, learn how to do that, and move on. So I don't think I have a particular mentor, so to speak of.
Okay. And who's your ideal client?
Ideally, I think I would to work with very large ecosystem players, large banks, large ecosystem players like free trade zones, banks, governments. These are the ones who are providing access to millions of businesses. So if I get access to these guys, then the access can be pushed out to everybody. But if I have to go directly to each one of them, that's not doable. So I would ideally want to work with large ecosystem players.
Okay. And people who are watching this right now, how can they support you?
People who are watching this, guys, I think the only thing I can say is if you think that you know someone who needs a solution for commerce, something that will really help them to scale and grow, send them to us. We are here to help. We have an open source platform. And like I said, most of the open source is completely free. So you don't necessarily need to pay us anything. You can take those APIs or those modules and you can consume it yourself. You can go to unimart.com, EUNIMART.com, unimart.com, and you'll find everything in it.
Wonderful. And what would you say as final words?
Look, I think we are in the middle of incredible disruption in the world today. Web 3.0 is launching. And typically, when you see, if you look at the last 50 years of history, massive change has been brought forward either by a change in protocol or by a change in hardware. So when we moved on from PC to mobile, massive companies were formed. When we moved on from on-premise software to cloud-based software, massive change was formed. When internet was introduced, massive change has happened. So either a protocol change or a hardware change brings about massive change in people's behavior, and that leads to big businesses being born. I think today we are reaching a stage where, distribution is easy. Intelligence is becoming fiercely better than it has ever been, and integrations are so much easier. But I do think at the end of the day, distributed or sharing economy is the future. And I'm here to support all those businesses that want to build on this economy, that want to grow. And so my final message is to all those young entrepreneurs out there that trust me, it's not going to be easy, but if you stick to it, there's a lot of fun out there. At least I've had a lot of fun building what I've built.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shayak, for sharing your wisdom with us on the behalf of Integrated Success Formula and my entire team. Stay blessed. Have a good day.
Thanks a lot, Yusuf.